Feel the power.
Oh, I can feel it.
Our moment of triumph approaches. It's
Rock Talk.
This is a coalition of New Hampshire taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is a repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now, at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
According to a recent Gallup poll, red states are home to some of the most trusted state governments in the country, and blue states are home to some of the least. Terms red and blue here refer to governing models, not partisan affiliation of the current state leadership. The 4 states whose governments have the highest confidence ratings, North Dakota, Wyoming, Nebraska, and Montana, are all red, while the 4 states whose governments have the lowest ratings, Illinois, Rhode Island, Connecticut, and New Jersey, all have deep blue governing models. AmericanInterest.com, reporting on the Gallup poll, notes that 3 of the 4 blue states most facing a confidence crisis are suffering from acute blue model decay in the form of runaway public pension costs. Illinois, according to the New York Times, is facing one of the worst fiscal crises of any state in recent decades, largely because it has mismanaged its pension system. Connecticut, despite being the wealthiest state per capita in the Union, has roughly half of what it needs to pay future retirement benefits for its workers, according to the Wall Street Journal. And Moody's recently warned New Jersey that it could face yet another credit downgrade if it loses a forthcoming pension lawsuit. Rhode Island's situation is less urgent, but is still worrisome. Meanwhile, of the red state governments topping the list, all are comparatively fiscally healthy. From an editorial in this morning's Concord Monitor. For 15 years, the state of New Hampshire reneged on its promise to devote 5% of the state's revenue from liquor sales to substance abuse prevention and treatment programs as called for by law. The program was funded at the required level only in 1 year. In 1998, in a historic tobacco industry settlement, New Hampshire received $264 million and a promise of $50 million per year forever. All but a tiny fraction of the money was used to balance the general fund budget. That contributed to the 2011 Center for Behavioral Statistics ranking, declaring the state the second worst in the nation when it comes to treating people who need it. They then go on to applaud the efforts of private individuals to address the problem, but close with this. State and local government should not be allowed to shirk their responsibility to help people in need. The first thing lawmakers should do is reauthorize the Medicaid expansion made possible by the Affordable Care Act. The expanded program pays for drug, alcohol, and mental health treatment that thousands of people couldn't get without it. As if the same government from the first 2 paragraphs will become something different after they expand Medicaid. Some people just never learn. From the desk of Senator Kelly Ayotte, Justice Scalia's unexpected passing creates a vacancy on the Supreme Court, which is now ideologically evenly split. Supreme Court justices have significant power in our constitutional system of government, as they are the final arbiter on the meaning of our Constitution and laws. Empowered with a lifetime appointment, the next nominee is likely to have a significant impact on the court and the people of our country for decades to come. I believe strongly that the people of New Hampshire must have a say in this extraordinarily important debate. With so much on the line for the future of our country, the Senate should not proceed with the confirmation process until the American people have spoken by electing a new president in November. Coming up on today's program, guest host Jane Cormier joins us as we discuss the passing of Justice Scalia and the battle over the Supreme Court vacancy, the South Carolina primary, the latest Project Veritas election fraud revelation from the New Hampshire primary, your phone calls, and a lot more. Stay tuned. Grok Talk starts next. Need more Grok Talk? Well, you can catch new shows Saturday mornings from 9 to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Miss a show? Not a problem. Past shows are rebroadcast here daily from 9 to 11 a.m. Monday through Friday. Join us for 2 hours of unapologetic conservatism. And we're not just armed with opinions.
3, 2, 1.
We'd like to welcome you to another edition of Grok Talk, brought to you by New Hampshire's leading conservative blog site, GraniteGrok.com. We are your feared extremist, right-wing, hard-charging, gun-toting, opinionated, outspoken, rabble-rousing, letter-writing, radio, microphone stomping conservatives and rational libertarians. So get ready for more news and opinion you could only get from GraniteGrok.com.
Grok Talk.
Hey, for those of you who missed the news read because you listened to the show on, say, some other internet radio station, welcome to Grok Talk, by the way. I want to open with this because I found it to be extremely interesting, and it's relevant to our later discussion about replacing Supreme Court justices and some other things that we're going to get into. The Concord Monitor had an editorial this morning in which they said this, and if you heard the news read, I apologize because I'm repeating exactly what I read. For 15 years, the state of New Hampshire reneged on its promise to devote 5% of the state's revenue from liquor sales to substance abuse prevention and treatment programs as called for by law. The program was funded at the required level only in 1 year. In 98, in a historic tobacco industry settlement, New Hampshire received $264 million and a promise of $50 million per year forever. All but a tiny fraction of the money was used to balance the general fund budget. And so as a result of this, we've got some bad ratings from some organizations. So then this article goes on to say, well, but these really nice rich people who have lots of property and money have gone out of their way to use their own resources to help solve this heroin addiction problem that we seem to have in the state. And they're doing this to help create a center and da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And then it goes and says, as with the 12-step programs run by Alcoholics Anonymous, successful treatment can require long-term participation in counseling and group meetings. To continue on its mission, Hope for New Hampshire needs the support of charity, citizens, the business community, and government, which is kind of the whole point of the article. In the end, however, and this is the Concord Monitor, and this is a staff editorial, nonprofits can't do it alone. State and local government should not be allowed to shirk their responsibility to help people in need. The first thing lawmakers should do is reauthorize the Medicaid expansion made possible by the Affordable Care Act. The expanded program pays for drug, alcohol, and mental health treatment that thousands of people couldn't get without it. Now, what I said in the newsread was, what changed from the first two paragraphs? What about government changed? Absolutely nothing.
No, nothing at all.
Expanding Medicaid will result in the exact same problem we already have because we have the same government. And this is a 15, 20-year-old problem. Didn't matter if it was Democrats, Republicans, all Democrats, all Republicans. It's a government problem.
It is. There's no doubt about it. And I haven't posted it yet, but Ben Carson hit it quite right. Government is not responsible for indigent people. We are. And I've been writing the same thing for years. It's not up to government to take care of us, regardless of what Bernie Sanders says.
I'm not sure what microphone you're on.
Hello, hello. Hello, hello.
Okay, I'm going to start turning. Keep talking.
Okay, keep talking.
There, I found you.
Okay.
Hello. We're good. Good morning, Jane. Anyway, so please proceed, and then we'll get your comments and Mike's.
Rude
I'm
of him.
sorry.
No, the progressives have always said, everything good should come out of government, basically denigrating individual effort. Here, the Concord Monitor, or Pravda on the Merrimack, whichever one you choose, gives a backhanded slap at civil society, which was supposed to be where most of our interactions as individuals were supposed to happen. They basically said, they come out and say it. They continue the socialist line. It's no longer progressive, it's just socialist. That only government can do the best things longest. And I'm sorry, that's absolutely false. It's just because the socialists have so pushed government into crowding out everything else, there can't be, because it's so small. If government were to ratchet back, I can guarantee you, the formerly known mutual aid societies would spring up in full force, because that's what still American spirit is all about, helping your neighbor. Mm-hmm. Now, here in New Hampshire, we do have that special part of government that says every single town or city will have a welfare officer, and that's written into the Constitution. Just the way it is, folks. So there is here in New Hampshire, there's a constitutional mandate for towns to take care of their own. There isn't at the state level, which the Monitor is trying to imply that there is such, and they're wrong. Mm-hmm. You cannot impugn somebody to do something just because you think it's right. And in fact, the Monitor itself is being absolutely stupid Because if it felt so strongly about this whole issue, why don't they spin up another nonprofit and fund it out of their copious profits as a news media outlet? And I say that in tongue-in-cheek.
Well, as we discussed
do this.
before the show, there were a lot of other solutions to this problem. One of which was obviously these Scott Lawson and the Grapponi Group and Rhymes Propane and these other Bobby Siegel. These people are using their own money, the success that they've gained from operating in the state, to assist other people by their own free choice. It's a free market solution. They're choosing to do it. They are also more likely to monitor the success and the efficiency of that program than a government organization
It's
would.
skin in the game.
And it's money, and it's going to a purpose that the progressives say we need to go to. But why, we were talking about a solution. Why not, if the government wants to do anything, and it shouldn't do anything, it really doesn't have to. If the government's going to do anything, why not make it easier for more companies to do the same thing of their own free will, rather than create a circumstance where you're going to end up raising taxes, making it less likely they'll be able to afford to do it.
Well, I agree with you getting government out of the way to do that. I disagree with the idea that government should be nudging people through the tax code or what have you.
You're
to
not
do
actually
stuff.
nudging by getting out of the way. You're encouraging them to do so.
Right, but you read that example earlier. Then earlier this week was the a micro WTF, where it came out that $20 million for the developmentally disabled in the HHS budget here in New Hampshire wasn't spent for its intended cause. We also know that special ed monies to the local levels hasn't been paid in what was promised. We see the highway fund that was supposed to do certain things hasn't been used for its proper purpose.
The progressives are the first people to go after the budget and cut nursing home funding, mental health wait lists, anything at all. They will cut all these programs they claim they stand for like that if they have a problem with money. And making government bigger means you're going to have problems with money. So they're just creating a situation where they're going to leave people stranded.
Actually, you're wrong about it being a problem with money. There's always money to be had for government. It's the political will to do the right thing with that money.
Well, I wasn't being that specific, but yes.
I am, because it makes it goes to the heart of the matter that you can't trust government. Now, I've been going through a recent spate of time where my interactions with government have gone way up. And I keep making this point over and over again, that government will do what it wants to do. You cannot trust it because of things like this, and that it is very intrusive, and that it doesn't do what it says it's going to do, or it does it poorly. I've said for years, I want government smaller. I like that phrase, wrap it up in a burlap bag, tie it off in a knot, and throw it in the bathtub. Maybe, just maybe then it might learn. Do a very few number of things, but do them exceptionally well. And I don't have a problem with government doing what it's supposed to do. It's when it starts going into everything else that it drives you crazy. It shouldn't. We had this discussion earlier. This drug problem is a self-righting problem. When it's like with anything else, you don't buy a drunk a drink, having been the son of an Irish drunk. It doesn't work. They've got to be motivated themselves not to do this. You can't give them a crutch. You cannot enable that behavior just because now you can, because they've taken one drug, you just fill them up with another drug to do it. We're seeing that some of these people are repeat users of Narcan.
Right.
It doesn't. It's a Band-Aid that falls off.
We were actually talking about the neo-anarchistic libertarian position on the issue, which was that people are free to do whatever they want, put whatever they want. And what I said was, it's in that frame of context, it's a self-correcting problem, because these people, technically, according to their philosophy, can do whatever they want with their bodies, and when it kills them, the problem ends. Okay, that's very cold and heartless, but that's the libertarian neo-anarchist, that's their world. That's what they think. So if any of those people who are saying people should be able to do whatever they want, but then, complain about that.
Just look at it in every sphere. About the only one that's semi-harmless is pot, where they think, where the liberals join with the libertarians and say, let everybody have pot. What was it? Somebody put, like for Bernie Sanders' philosophy, a chicken in every pot, or if you're in Colorado, a pot
In every chicken.
pot for everybody. Yeah, whatever.
A pot for every chicken.
Yeah.
Or maybe every snowflake.
Doobie doo.
Pot for every snowflake. Okay.
Yeah, but if you look at it, I mean, what they did with nicotine was quite simple. They legalized it, licensed it, and taxed it. And they did that with nicotine especially, and they keep raising the taxes with the excuse that if you smoke, you're a burden on public health, therefore we should take more of your money. So, I mean, the choice in any of these cases is you're going to take this stuff, it's going to shorten your life. So, I mean, the converse argument even to smoking is, yeah, but they're going to be a burden for less time. You know, what you're worried about,
Everyone has to worry about the public policy of basing your tax revenues on an ever-decreasing source.
But has anybody ever overdosed on cigarettes and just dropped dead right there? I don't,
no, but they don't last long.
No, they definitely shorten their lives.
They could, definitely. The whole point of this thing is I don't think that the government can or really desires to fix anything, because let's face it, when you have the issues like this come up, then they can jump on the bandwagon while the government is the only one that can fix it. We need the government.
Well, that's the funny thing about this article, because they're saying the government isn't very good at that, but then they're saying the government needs to be good at it.
Right.
And it's suddenly just going to become good at it because, by the way, we like big government, and we think this massive expansion of Medicaid would be awesome, and it would fix everything, and there would be rainbows and unicorns. And
yeah, that's the simple syndrome in there, because what was saying sensible things at the beginning then just blew it out of the water by the end with Medicaid expansion. But the truth is I often wonder if, since we're so data-oriented these days, everything's data, everything's polling, right? Do we get to a point where we say, I wonder if those numbers are even proper? Because let's face it, if there's no emergency, government likes, at least when there's no emergency, right? They almost have to have constant. Look at what Obama's done. Constant, everything is in such turmoil in everywhere you look.
It's deliberate. He's got to, in order to follow Rahm's dictum of not letting a crisis go to waste, you've got to keep creating crises.
So maybe we keep doing that even here in the state. I understand that there's we keep hearing about it, certainly.
Well, we have talked about how it seems odd that all of a sudden when Medicaid expansion comes along, we have a heroin addiction problem,
Huge, right?
It's strange. It's just bizarre.
And all of those folks,
I'm not an Alex Jones conspiracy theorist guy, but after you've been at this for a while, everything begins to look a little hinky.
That's true.
You question the validity of it, because let's face it, it keeps happening. We keep having these pockets
and
of
the government
issues.
lies.
No kidding.
Well, yeah. So, and that's a good question to ask. Is it really that much worse, or is it that we've just created this buzz to make it more visible?
Right.
Not to say that drug addiction isn't a nasty problem, but people have addictive personalities, and the ones that really have badly addictive personalities
run for government and spend your money.
Well,
sorry.
Yeah, that too. Are very hard to fix, no matter how many times you wean them off of the drugs.
Right.
There are other people that self-medicate with this, that, or the other, whether it's rum for a cold or heroin for for pain, and they get off it again. Mm-hmm. The libertarian viewpoint is you let them do it, and, well, it's a choice. And if you're stupid with your choices and you die, well, it's the same thing as doing bungee jumping without checking the cord first.
I think
true,
you're right.
Very true. And there's nothing wrong with that argument, really, as long as you're consistent.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the inconsistency that drives you crazy. But to your point, Jane, there always seems to be this crisis all over the place. Mm-hmm. This is nothing new. In fact, this goes back to the turn of the last century with Woodrow Wilson, Theodore Roosevelt, and the beginning of the progressive era, 1880 to 1920, that was the real big start. And they assumed that everything had to be a war on. Mm-hmm. And all of society, whatever perceived ill there was, it had to be a war on this, a war on that. Because the progressives knew that if you put the nation on a constant war footing, they're easier to control. Because
even a war on war.
They need you.
A war on war. But you look at this, we've got the war on poverty, the war on drugs, the war on this, the war on cancer, the war on, you name it, and it always seems to be a progressive at the helm saying we have to do a war on, as if everybody's going to gather together to do this one thing just because it's said there. No, it's just saying we want your money
Right.
to do this next thing.
Right.
And government
We
never.
want the power.
We want the power, and we want government to grow to do this.
Right.
And
Running out of time?
No, I'm going to say 20 seconds, and we're going to take a break. I just want to hear what you have to say before we go. If you
Okay.
can fit it in the 20 seconds. If
No,
not,
let
we'll-
me get back to it. Sorry.
All right, we'll take a quick break. We'll come right back, and we'll find out what it is Mike had to share. Hold on. Right button. Go.
This is a coalition of New Hampshire taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is a repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested, riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW, New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at gerardatlarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
Need more Grok Talk? Well, you can catch new shows Saturday mornings from 9 to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Miss a show? Not a problem. Past shows are rebroadcast here daily from 9 to 11 a.m. Monday through Friday. Join us for 2 hours of unapologetic conservatism. And we're not just armed with opinions.
Rock Talk. I'm here with Skip Murphy, Mike Rogers, Jane Cormier is our guest host. Thank you very much for coming in. We're talking about addictions and government and all kinds of good stuff. Remind you, listen to this in past programs on Spreaker, Stitcher, iTunes, TuneIn, iHeartRadio, therocknhcr.com, Ustream, YouTube, and of course, granitrock.com. Go.
I screwed up,
Mr. Murphy.
To our leaders, I mean listeners.
Murphy's
laws has struck.
Yes.
Yeah,
Here I am. I'm actually switching all of the shots from the two cameras and trying to do everything right. And at the end of last segment, I noticed I hadn't started broadcasting the video or recording it.
So we're here to tell you that it was an awesome job, but you weren't allowed to see it.
Yeah, it's like I'm doing everything I'm supposed to, except I didn't hit the right button at the right time, and I am so sorry.
Anyway, you could hear it, but you just couldn't see it.
So at least we had the audio version going out. So we
Is that all?
Oh, it's on.
Yeah.
I am recording.
For
It
the
is
benefit-
rolling on Spreaker. We're all set. Go ahead.
For the benefit of those of us who just joined us on Ustream, join in progress, as Rush would say. Skip was just talking about how the progressives make handling of any problem. You got to manufacture a crisis in order to have government solve it. You create a war on something on the specious argument that if you put the nation on a war footing for cancer, drugs,
Alcohol,
poverty, everything, that somehow the people will rise. Not realizing that just like any other kind of addiction, including overloading yourself with adrenaline or caffeine, eventually the body just wears out and it doesn't rise to the occasion anymore. But the question I had is, so yeah, we all know that the progressive era here and in the UK and of course even in the Soviet Union, because they weren't progressive back then, 1880 through 1920 was when a lot of the bad stuff happened. And then you said we started calling it a war on this or that in that period. So since I'm not as good a student of American history as I should be yet, who and what started calling government programs or drives a war on?
I think you can go back to, obviously, World War I, where Woodrow Wilson was the first one to do that. And we didn't have to get involved in the European War, which was the Great War, as it was called back then. We really didn't have to. Yes, there was the Lusitania and a couple other incidents that kind of were the straw that broke the camel's back.
Or false flag operations, as the case may have been.
Yeah, Woodrow Wilson really wanted to push it, and because he saw a vast vision of how he thought the world should be. So How do you mobilize an entire nation for a single purpose? You go to war. Now, it's one thing when it is an existential threat to your country, which I thought World War II was, absolutely. But we saw wars on legislations. That's how we lost the senators associated with the legislators to be sent to U.S. Senate, because a war on cronyism, a war on bad,
a war on corruption and
corruption. There we go.
In the state houses.
Yes,
and that somehow the system where senators are bought and paid for on a national basis is less corrupt than a system where occasional
it just became
deals
obvious
were done
that,
in state houses.
But Wilson's war economy was the realization of a progressive dream that led to the Bolshevik Revolution, that led to Nazism, that led the idea, not the actual thing, but the idea behind a war economy became this golden egg for would-be fascists and dictators around the world who would say, wait a minute, if we do this, and then that whole process led to the moral of equivalency of war arguments that we continue to battle with right now.
Yeah, and here's the really bad thing. The Industrial Revolution was taking place at that time, starting in Great Britain, and then the U.S. superseded it after, during and after World War I. But the whole idea of progressivism came up because they saw, some intellectuals saw that people are being reduced to just being cogs in a societal machine, because we had Darwinism starting up at the same time. And while they were fighting against the whole idea of the inhumane treatment of the cogs in the social model, now they've actually basically just taken that and internalized that, because they do see individuals as mere cogs in the machine. So they've gone full circle, and it took very little time to do that. The collectivism is nothing more, or the communitarianism is nothing more than seeing everybody as just a thing that is equal to anything else. You swap one in, swap one out, and that's how they view us, versus we conservatives who say every person, every individual is unique and should have that individual freedom to be left alone to seek their own happiness.
And somehow along the way the narrative got lost, because if you look at the feudal Europe that our forefathers, or your forefathers anyway, left to come here, everybody was a serf. They were just a cog on the farm owned by the Lord. Why would that be any different? So here was a nation of free men with a government that worked for them, and they could work the farm or they could work anything else. And if they chose to go to work in a factory, no matter the fact that the conditions might not be that great, they could always leave. Maybe when the factory owners were colluding in the late 19th century, they couldn't walk across town to another factory because they could be blackballed, but they could always leave town and go back to the farm. They were still free men. You had a choice not to be there.
Yeah, well, we see this all the time in the progressive era now, where they say, fight for 15, as if workers can't move from one McDonald's to somewhere else, better themselves. That the progressive model is that there's a constant, locked-in cement status quo. They have to change that status quo for whatever reason.
They've never run a business.
They've never run a business. But the point that I'm trying to make is that they've shifted their paralysis, really. But that's also coupled with the idea that history never starts until it only goes back as far as the day before you were born. That progressives don't look back into history to see what has and hasn't worked. They get rid of
or in most cases,
traditions.
The last most inconvenient thing you were caught saying on the air.
Right. Well, they don't actually have to.
like Chucky Schumer in 2007 or Obama in 2006 over the Supreme Court nominations here.
Yep.
But that's the thing. If they want to eliminate those traditions, because traditions arise because stuff worked under those traditions. There's a reason why traditions are there in a lot of cases.
Traditions work with the people. Traditions give the people some sort of formative. You can get them together if they can go around a cause or like you said, an event or something. You know what's interesting to me while we're talking about how this all happened around the turn of the century, 1900, for progressivism? You have to wonder why we are where we are today, why it's getting worse, with the advent of information media I mean, you would think, you see, you can kind of see in the old days how it worked because they maintained control of the press. They could put anything that they wanted through that vessel. And Americans, that was it. That was your information source, right? So you can kind of see how they got the early stranglehold on making the case for we need government. You know, you need us, or we need to do this. Now here we have all of this alternative media. We have opportunity at our fingertips to see. And yet we are still in the vice of such a strong progressive. I wonder.
I have two thoughts on that.
I've got one too.
First is if you go back to Dewey and the educational system, they've done a fine job of training people, regardless of what they see, to think that that's the way you should go. And my other thought was that on the opposite side is that this explains what people call that extremism, that divide. The divide was always there. It's just visible every single day in your Twitter
divide?
feed. The right-left divide. There's always been a divide. I mean, you know, National Review came about because of that divide. It did exist, and they had a way. They said, we're going to try to tap into that. And so that they created a magazine that was designed to be more conservative than what people were used to seeing in the media. And so now you've got people going, oh, those crazy. And that's just because they're deviating from the course set in stone for us by our masters,
right.
you know, who want us all to be serfs. So now, thanks to the internet and talk radio, we have 24/7 access, 365 days a year to the other side, which is what we do. We are the other side of that opinion.
So if that's true, how do we explain the Trump phenomenon?
I will tell you, in fact, there was gosh, I got to find it. I've got it bookmarked on my other computer back at home.
That's the 10-second internet attention span, I think.
Yeah, well,
really?
I think so.
This Trump supporter was asked that question, and he said, it seems as if as the American populace gets more and more news, they become less and less savvy.
Really?
The more information that's available, the less they internalize it. And let's put it bluntly.
And is it because they were trained that way by the education establishment?
Well, you mean they hear the news, but they reject it?
Well, not so much that, but I don't think the attention span of a gnat comes to mind.
But why? We have to ask, why does that happen?
Because we have the whole atmosphere of celebrityhood.
Yeah,
we have
that's
more
true.
people who understand what the Kardashians have just done in the last 30 seconds than what their legislatures are doing to them over the last 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And also, I'll put it to you this way. As we have become more secular as a nation, and we can certainly see that here in New Hampshire, where we are the most secular state, least churched state in the Union, it brings to mind that phrase, if you don't believe in God, you'll believe in anything.
Yeah.
And we all know that belief in God requires belief in absolute values and morals, that they are rooted in our sacred writings, the Bible, and that they are part of our orthodoxy. Well, when you remove that, which really started, the freight train on that started really in the 60s, love the one you with. If it feels good,
right.
do it. If it doesn't hurt somebody, it's okay.
Right.
Well, it's that last part that, going back to the attention span of a gnat and not worrying about history until it started the day before you were born, they don't understand that when you turn into a situational ethics society, that when you go into a relativism or postmodernism type philosophy where you can rationalize everything because nothing is of any consequence, there is no absolute truth. In fact, a lot of people believe there's no truth at all because my truth is not the same as yours.
Relativism.
That is the relativism. So that's why you see.
I still don't understand it. I'll tell you.
But when you don't believe in God,
right,
you can believe in
there
anything.
are plenty of people that believe in God that are pushing for what Trump is selling, which is, I believe, progressivism that is blatant if you look at the last years, right? So why aren't we picking up on it? Why do we have supposedly, constitutionally and conservative
because
folks?
they're willing to believe. I think this goes back to movies and the media to some extent. The willing suspension of disbelief. They're willing to believe that Trump is a patriot, that he's somehow going to do the right thing.
Why are they willing, though? See, this is the morph I think that's happening. Before we had clearly defined where we were.
All right, I'm going to pick on you for just a minute. Instead of doing the eye roll,
yeah,
okay, which you just did.
Absolutely.
And
I'll do it again.
Yeah. You have to understand that for a lot of people, they are seeing that phrase, we're losing our country, and they take it extremely to heart. But again, we have that thin veneer of news, thin veneer of savviness, and the unwillingness to get down deep like we all do. We are news and political junkies. We are abnormal.
These people don't have a constitutional conservative principle morality on which to stand. Most of them don't. Now, some of the people, and this is a great filter because I've been working on a post for over a week that I can't word right that addresses this.
Yes.
And basically says, now I have friends who are Trump supporters, and they're very enthusiastic. And they have different things. But, as you look at all the stuff that comes out and how they react to it, and then how they react to the lawfare, how they react to the crybaby stuff, how they react to the name. These are all liberal tactics, every single one of them.
Right.
And they ignore them, which tells me something about them, not just about Trump, which is that they are no better or worse than, say, all the Obama supporters who weren't really Democrats, who just jumped on board because he was the black guy.
It's the same thing.
It's the same basic concept. You're forgetting about the principles. If Ted Cruz comes out and legitimately goes off the rails, I'm not going to vote for him because I have principles and conservatism and values.
Correct.
And those are the things that define how I react to my family, my government, my friends, and so on and so forth. These people don't appear to have that. Now, we thought they did, some of them. But we've had people that we know who we thought were pretty decent Republicans or conservatives who have gone off and supported ridiculous things that deep down we know that if they thought about it, they'd be like, this is a liberal thing. This is a
whether it's
thing.
the ex-law enforcement officer who supports or supported Christie, for reasons that I can't figure other than he's a good prosecutor.
It's the Trump test.
Right. And a friend of mine who is, or I thought, a staunch conservative, but I know he's also a mercantilist. He wants some degree of protectionism against bad actors around the world, bring home some of our mining, manufacturing and stuff. And he is a Trump supporter. And there's just so many things wrong with the overall picture. We absolutely applaud what Trump has done to blow up the Overton window, to open up the discourse, to make it possible to really go after the malfeasance of government in general and the Republican Party.
And media.
And government, and the Republican Party, which should be the backstop that prevents all this in particular. And yet, we see he does this, and then people don't look beyond and say, but wait, this guy's a populist. I got called Goebbels this morning because somebody said something to the effect of, I like Trump because he's for national capitalism. And I said,
what?
So let me see. That would be more accurately phrased as national liberalism, a.k.a. national socialism.
No kidding.
Ask the Germans how that kind of populism worked out.
Yeah.
And I immediately got be accused of being Goebbels.
Yeah. Well, it goes back to what this has been a great conversation.
Name calling another left wing.
Yeah. This has been a great conversation. I don't think we've gotten this deep philosophically in a long time. This
2
is
minutes,
what I
2 minutes.
really enjoy. But it also goes back to a lot of these people have been seeing their country slip away. Their belief in institutions that have now shown, because of the internet, to be poor at best, like we were talking about in the beginning that I didn't record, the ability of government to function well. So the resonating line is, we will make America great again. These are really good, decent people who are patriots. They see the decline in our standing in the world deliberately done. They see the decline in our country deliberately done by those that we have elected. They are failing. So when somebody comes up, and I hate to make the analogy at the risk of breaking Godwin's law again, that now you've got another person who is saying, I can make my country great again. And they're glomming onto that because they're looking at him as a lifeline. Because somebody is finally articulating the
you
things.
may have to hold that point again.
The things that we hold dear. They want an America that I grew up in.
Well, I want to tell you a story after we come back about this and see what you think, because it's been bothering me for about 3 weeks.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break. We have all sorts of people queued up to say things, and isn't that just what we're here for? We'll be right back. Stay tuned.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested, riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW, New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at GerardAtLarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
This is the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is the repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
Need more Grok Talk? Well, you can catch new shows Saturday mornings from 9 to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Miss a show? Not a problem. Past shows are rebroadcast here daily from 9 to 11 a.m. Monday through Friday. Join us for 2 hours of unapologetic conservatism. And we're not just armed with opinions.
Alrighty. No tapping on the table, Mike. Stop that. Rock Talk is brought to you by GraniteRock.com and the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers, coming to you live almost every Saturday, rebroadcast Monday through Fridays from 9 to 11 a.m. Eastern Time on GraniteRock.com and TheRockNHCR.com. Check us out anytime you want, anywhere you want on your mobile device, on Spreaker, Stitcher, iTunes, TuneIn, iHeartRadio, and if you're into it, YouTube and Ustream, when we actually record it on Ustream.
Thanks.
And let us not forget, the band that's doing the intro here are capitalists. These guys know how to manage a business.
Right, so I got to turn it down before I go too far and exceed my fair use provision, and they sue me. Go ahead.
Jane,
well, you're pointing to me.
Yeah, so you said, do you guys really believe what you're saying?
Right.
Open up with that.
Okay,
Tell us what you got on your mind.
So, you're probably 3 of maybe 5 people here in the state that I feel that I can actually make a statement to, and we'll get a coherent, helpful response in return. No. But you know what? There's something about
Your
this.
turn.
Thanks. There's something about this recent election, the way that this is falling in the Republican primary side, that boggles my mind and really rather upsets me. And I know that it shouldn't, because, like you said, there are plenty. We're all friends, and I don't mean here. I mean, out there. Right, we have Republican friends.
We're not her friend
No,
anymore.
Shush, I feel. No, I'm just saying that, everybody knows me knows I'm solidly behind Cruz from I think I first met him late 2013 when he was just speaking at an event. And since then, and I knew then that if he ran, that was it. Fine.
Like I picked up on Herman Cain around 2009 or 10 and was so saddened when the party pushed him out.
Yeah. Well, that was a shame, too. So we have such a bizarre situation here. I'm active in the situation because I've supported Ted, but also on social media. I'm now doing even more Twitter, but I'm big on Facebook, and I'm big on going into the pages of the Facebook that support Trump. I almost never use. I don't think I've ever called names. I will say the Donald. I will be very clear as to why I believe he's backward on this stuff and that he's a liberal, and that I can point to specific words that he has used. And I'm not saying even that far long ago. I mean, I'm not even talking about the stuff that he said in the 90s. I'm talking about stuff that he has said within 5-6 years, right?
Well, like, for example, he couldn't get straight which side of the Obamacare mandate he was only this week.
Well, now we know, right? Single payer, which is probably the most progressive and deadly thing that can happen to the nation. But okay, that's all right. So I'm being the person that I am because I don't like to back off. I have found in the past month that many prominent constitutional conservatives have been doing everything they can to put their thumb down and squish when I'm online or when I'm talking. And
Are they treating you like Miscellany Blue would treat you if you used the word Free State?
Well, I'll tell you what has happened. You know what? In some ways, it's been shocking to me because while I think I've been fairly, I haven't been ugly at all, or name calling, but I've been specific. I keep getting responses which make me think that they're actually talking to one another, because they keep saying, "So Jane, will you vote for Trump if he wins?" And then they say this, and it kills me. It kills me. And you know what? I think you guys are just better than I am. Because then they all say, 2-1, well, we'll vote for Cruz if he wins. And it infuriates me. Because in private conversations with these people, and they're well-known names, you guys know the same people I know, they will tell me, we know that Cruz is the real deal. They will say, we know where he stands. We think he's a good guy. Blah, blah, blah. And then they go out and they push for Trump. Actively push and push and push for Trump. I want to say to them, and this last, like I said a couple weeks ago, there was one guy that, I've been responding to for a while. A real constitutional conservative. I suspect he was in the service and really respected this guy. And, he virtually got to name calling with me because I would not say I would vote for Trump. In this email thread, I said, I vote for the person. I am not going to vote for anybody whom I feel, whether it's Republican or Democrat, is not a person of integrity.
I'll name names.
Well, this guy got so egregious in there. And, they always end up cutting me off. I've lost them all, which is fine. They say, okay, we can't talk to you anymore, which is okay. Because that's what it's for. That's why you have an unfriend button, right? Mm-hmm. So he just kept dogging, will you vote for him? Will you vote for him? I kept saying, I'm not going. I said, why should I even have to answer this? We're talking about the race, Cruz versus Trump. And then he said, well, I would vote for Cruz. I said, you know what? That's really big of you. So we go in there and we fight the war for the guy that in your heart of hearts is correct. And then you'll deign to come and join us after the war's been fought, and we'll vote for Cruz. I find that so disingenuous and so wrong for what our founders stood for. And yet these are the guys that will stand behind and say, well, founding fathers. Bull crap. I say bull crap. I say that you are so wrong, and I don't think we should placate this.
The nearest thing to a founding father is... Sorry, go, Skip. The nearest thing to a founding father today is Ted Cruz. Go, sorry.
His eyes were open, too, when he did it.
I know. Go, Skip, and then he keeps on going.
All right, come on. You go. I'll shut up.
The camera can see the red face. It's almost as red as your shirt.
It's a reflection.
I think what you're seeing is typical. And I don't see, from reading of history, I don't see anything that as anything worse than what we saw back at the founding of our country, because the politics there were brutal.
Right.
And they got to duel, too.
No kidding. Life-threatening.
Life-threatening. You're seeing the interplay of the cult of personality. You're seeing psychology. You're seeing mob mentality. You're seeing sociology, all wrapped up into one. And this is nothing new. Every single major type deal, as far as an election is concerned, we get that all the time, except we generally, on the Republican side, and I'm not a Republican anymore, yay! We've had such a plethora of personalities and stances and numbers of candidates. We have seen that segmentation. And there, like I said, if you don't believe in God, you believe in anything. And it's the same way in politics, because when you start to back a candidate, sometimes it's logical. We all can point to things that we like about Ted Cruz, because all of us here are Ted Cruz supporters. And we can list that stuff up because we are the analytical type here. But there's very much to be said for the psychological side, that people just operate on feelings. And whether we like it or not, that's what you might see. There is what our esteemed friend here said about movies and the suspension of belief.
Right.
And I think part of that is seeing that and the sense of, I belong to a movement.
But I'm not talking about the people that are uninformed that are pushing for Trump. I'm talking about the ones that know better.
But they've made their stance, and now they can't back down.
Why?
And I said it earlier, I said, this is where we learn lessons about these people. and where they
I
stand.
hope that that's not true because
Okay?
I find that
It doesn't
crushing.
mean they can't be saved, right? Every soul can be saved. We know this is true, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we know they can be
Send-
saved.
send for
However,
Rafael Cruz.
it tells us things about their psychology and their politics. And it says to you, maybe down the road they won't have my back. So you just assume they don't. The person that I was having an issue with was Al Baldessaro. He's out there on Facebook pushing the Cruz isn't Canadian, he's not a citizen,
Huge.
the lawsuit, and all that stuff. Now, there's a whole bunch of things in there. Whether you agree or not, the lawfare component is the thing I have a problem with. If you want to debate whether or not, but using this form of intimidation, threats of lawsuits, not just on that, but on ads and on
That's
everything
right.
else, this is completely liberal. There is no...
Progressive.
There is a progressive thing. There is no room for support for that.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't support it if it was being done, and I'm not
They
going
think
to.
it's funny.
But,
And
He's taking it to him.
But
It-
those who would commit lawfare against Ted Cruz or engage him in a battle of wits are bringing a knife to a gunfight.
Right. I don't care who is using it against. Carson, anybody, okay?
I agree.
If somebody was using it on Trump, there's no place for that, okay?
No.
That's
to
when
make you
Al did
shut up.
that, when Al did that, I got really mad. And I was like, that
You're not
tells
alone.
me something about, and he's not alone. He's not the only
You're
one. I'm
right.
not just picking
No,
on
I
Al.
getcha.
Al does great things. But this is a problem for me.
It is for me too, and Al, like you said, there are plenty of other people that the past 5 years I've worked side by side with, fighting for what we talk about here every week. You know, how we stand for founding, for what is really important, founding principles.
Our founding principles that American exceptionalism isn't about
Yes.
bragging, but about being founded differently.
they
And
be
as a
so lost?
contrast, there are Trump supporters who are not pushing this narrative. And that's a different situation.
Right.
They support Trump, but they're not out there saying, yeah, sue him. Yeah, he's not American. They're letting that part go by.
So-
They're focusing on the other things about his campaign that they like. Now, that doesn't forgive them for it
No, I get
necessarily,
you.
but it tells you something
And I
about
agree with what you're saying. You're
them
right about that.
as a supporter and as a politician or a person
So I want
engaged
you
in the
to so
debate.
explain this to me then, because this is what I don't get about it. And like I've said, I've gotten multiple times almost the same wording from different folks, founding principle people, supposedly here in New
You
Hampshire.
mean like liberal talking points?
No, here's what they say. Why do they always say, why do they try to make me say, I will vote for Trump? What is that component? Because, you know, if I saw once or twice, it wouldn't be a big deal. But I'm getting it from all of these folks that, like Baldessaro, who has not been one of those, but like Baldessaro, that have been on the front of pushing Trump here big time with our group of constituents, right? Why they do?
The
why?
guy dressed in the Christmas colors has an answer.
Go ahead. I'm just wondering.
Where's my red?
Red hat.
It's hat.
Oh,
Hat.
dang.
Go ahead, Christmas elf. Tell us. Hey,
Christmas
you're going to
elf.
have a better answer than anybody else. I'm just having some fun. Go.
Look back to the beginning of the Trump campaign, where he was originally threatened with where he was threatening, I won't support the nominee.
Right.
I will leave and go to a third party.
And it might still happen.
And it may still happen. But that's how, in the early time of his campaign, that's what started this. So that is part and parcel of what you're seeing here now, in my understanding, because now they're trying to use that against everybody else. Well, you know, he finally signed it, and I think he was compelled to sign it.
So what?
But now they're using that.
Why are they trying to say, "Will you vote"? Why is that a
They
big
want
deal?
to lock you in the way the RNC locked him in.
Yes.
I also think it's
So that when he runs third party,
Really?
Yeah.
if he does, he could still win.
It's part of it's
Are you
part of
kidding
the,
me?
It's part of the narrative, I think, to say that we can't trust Republicans to vote for Donald if he wins. So if enough people balk at it, they're basically this is I think it's their litmus test. They're saying, look, we told you so. The party doesn't support us. Therefore, if we don't win at the convention, we're going to go for the party.
It's very Paulist, and it has some of the same undertones of the Ron Paul cult of personality, where there is no other candidate, no matter what. I mean, there's a lot of that. It's not all of them. I mean, there are a lot of libertarians that support Trump and Cruz and like Rubio even.
Yeah.
And And those are all fine. I mean, you can choose your, but that undercurrent, one of the problems I always had about Ron and Rand Paul wasn't Ron Paul or Rand Paul. It was their supporters.
Yeah.
I don't have an issue with any of them. I mean, I don't agree with them on the international stuff and the
right.
foreign policy stuff, but given the manifold of choices, I would have taken them almost anywhere, anytime over anybody, because I knew I could count on them to do what they believed. And that was the important part, just like this whole discussion has been about, can I trust you to defend what you believe?
Well, and obviously not in some cases.
Right,
And
exactly.
just taking an example from the 2012 versus the 2016 campaign. In the 2012 campaign, Biondo was on the Santorum campaign, and him and his people were treated very badly by the Ron Paulists, especially at the Iowa straw poll. And I observed that, and I supported him and his people over that. Fast forward 4 years, and we're talking about the winnowing process for a conservative, and Rand Paul is a very plausible conservative, certainly a constitutionalist, better than his father in many ways, I believe, or more appealing. Mm-hmm. Okay? And Biondo's on that campaign, and we say, fine, so we got this process. Will you participate? Oh, no, I'll take my toys and go home.
Yeah, because they couldn't have the whole
Again,
the whole
and that
thing,
was a
right?
lesson that was learned. And those of us who are interested in that sort of thing were paying attention.
Yeah, and I think that was further underscored when the Republican Liberty Caucus was held and their straw poll, and Cruz got within an inch of Paul at his own show, and they knew the writing was on the wall.
And the RLC did eventually endorse Rand Paul right before he dropped out, and we didn't say it was fixed.
No,
but. It's the Republican Liberty Caucus. It just seems natural for me to think that that's the way they're going to go.
Yeah. But I go back to the beginning of the Trump campaign, and I think what you're seeing is that tactic being used against other people. Well, you force this upon us. We're trying to force this upon you just to see how steadfast you are to that particular principle. Mm-hmm. And what we're seeing now is that there are a lot of Republicans that are coming out and saying, I won't vote for Trump.
Right.
And we saw about 3 to 4 weeks ago where you had a number of heavyweights basically saying, maybe it is time for us to go and form a third party. And this is the establishment saying, we'll form a third party.
I know,
and I thought that was hysterical.
So that's why I say this is not...
They've basically admitted they can't control the outcome within their own party anymore, and they may have to go off somewhere else.
Oh, go. Bye.
I mean...
Papa Smurf saying,
let me help you, Paul.
I don't understand the electorate anymore.
I got the perfect combo for him. Why don't they leave and form their own party and take Bloomberg and Bush as the candidates?
They can call it the Bull Moose Party or something.
But I don't think this has really happened before. Have you ever seen anything like this? How bizarre. It's almost like it's inside out. And for how many decades have we said, God, please send us a constitutional conservative for the bully pulpit in our White House? And, someone that can actually educate, someone that can actually speak, in a way that people can grasp.
And then we got the Jim Gilmores and who was the other also ran?
Pataki?
Pataki. I mean, you've got all these people who continue to look in the mirror saying, I could be president. And they all came out at the same time. We saw the plethora of candidates in the last cycle. Not quite as many as this time, but still enough to fill the stage. And we're hearing the same thing now that we did back then.
I mean,
how do we get them all to debate?
After we elected Obama, how much lower could the bar go? Really? He doesn't know crap about anything. And
it's going lower because Trump knows less.
No, I'm going to agree with Rubio on this.
You got about 30 seconds.
Obama absolutely has known what he's trying to do.
He did it from the beginning.
I will tell you that he has been one of the best presidents ever.
All right, you've said that 1,000 times. I don't even need to hear you. He has been very effective at advancing his agenda.
Yes.
But if you look at everything we were told about him, none of it's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
He's just a guy...
Yeah,
he's a vessel.
Tiger.
Talking to a girl.
Right.
He's
trying to tell him he loves her. All right, we'll be right back. This is Grok Talk. We will be back in a couple of minutes. Stay tuned as we go to break, and I find the right buttons to push. There we go. Bye.
Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is the repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now to talk top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested, riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW, New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at gerardatlarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
The opinions expressed on this program are those of the speakers and not necessarily those of CNHT, GraniteRock.com, this station, or anyone else for that matter. From the CNHT studios in Concord, New Hampshire, just a few blocks from the New Hampshire State House, this is
Rock Talk.
Oh, feel the power.
Oh, I can feel it.
Our moment of triumph approaches. It's
Rock Talk.
This is a coalition of New Hampshire taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is the repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
According to a recent Gallup poll, red states are home to some of the most trusted state governments in the country, and blue states are home to some of the least. Terms red and blue here refer to governing models, not partisan affiliation of the current state leadership. The 4 states whose governments have the highest confidence ratings, North Dakota, Wyoming, Nebraska, and Montana, are all red, while the 4 states whose governments have the lowest ratings, Illinois, Rhode Island, Connecticut, and New Jersey, all have deep blue governing models. AmericanInterest.com, reporting on the Gallup poll, notes that 3 of the 4 blue states most facing a confidence crisis are suffering from acute blue model decay in the form of runaway public pension costs. Illinois, according to the New York Times, is facing one of the worst fiscal crises of any state in recent decades, largely because it has mismanaged its pension system. Connecticut, despite being the wealthiest state per capita in the Union, has roughly half of what it needs to pay future retirement benefits for its workers, according to the Wall Street Journal. And Moody's recently warned New Jersey that it could face yet another credit downgrade if it loses a forthcoming pension lawsuit. Rhode Island's situation is less urgent, but is still worrisome. Meanwhile, of the red state governments topping the list, all are comparatively fiscally healthy. From an editorial in this morning's Concord Monitor. For 15 years, the state of New Hampshire reneged on its promise to devote 5% of the state's revenue from liquor sales to substance abuse prevention and treatment programs as called for by law. The program was funded at the required level only in 1 year. In 1998, in a historic tobacco industry settlement, New Hampshire received $264 million and a promise of $50 million per year forever. All but a tiny fraction of the money was used to balance the general fund budget. That contributed to the 2011 Center for Behavioral Statistics ranking, declaring the state the second worst in the nation when it comes to treating people who need it. They then go on to applaud the efforts of private individuals to address the problem, but close with this. State and local government should not be allowed to shirk their responsibility to help people in need. The first thing lawmakers should do is reauthorize the Medicaid expansion made possible by the Affordable Care Act. The expanded program pays for drug, alcohol, and mental health treatment that thousands of people couldn't get without it. As if the same government from the first 2 paragraphs will become something different after they expand Medicaid. Some people just never learn. From the desk of Senator Kelly Ayotte, Justice Scalia's unexpected passing creates a vacancy on the Supreme Court, which is now ideologically evenly split. Supreme Court justices have significant power in our constitutional system of government, as they are the final arbiter on the meaning of our Constitution and laws. Empowered with a lifetime appointment, the next nominee is likely to have a significant impact on the court and the people of our country for decades to come. I believe strongly that the people of New Hampshire must have a say in this extraordinarily important debate. With so much on the line for the future of our country, the Senate should not proceed with the confirmation process until the American people have spoken by electing a new president in November. Coming up on today's program, guest host Jane Cormier joins us as we discuss the passing of Justice Scalia and the battle over the Supreme Court vacancy, the South Carolina primary, the latest Project Veritas election fraud revelation from the New Hampshire primary, your phone calls, and a lot more. Stay tuned. Grok Talk starts next. Need more Grok Talk? Well, you can catch new shows Saturday mornings from 9 to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Miss a show? Not a problem. Past shows are rebroadcast here daily from 9 to 11 a.m. Monday through Friday. Join us for 2 hours of unapologetic conservatism. And we're not just armed with opinions.
Rock Talk.
3, 2, 1.
We'd like to welcome you to another edition of Grok Talk, brought to you by New Hampshire's leading conservative blog site, granitegrok.com. We are your feared extremist, right-wing, hard-charging, gun-toting, opinionated, outspoken, rabble-rousing, letter-writing, radio microphone stomping conservatives and rational libertarians. So get ready for more news and opinion you could only get from granitegrok.com.
Rock Talk.
All right, it's time to play talk radio. Let's go. Okay.
We haven't stopped.
We
So-
haven't.
so
No,
let's-
anyway,
so-
so I was going to start another topic, but apparently you're not going to let me go ahead.
No. Let's just quickly revisit the tipping point and the suspension of disbelief, because I think this is crucial. What's driving the rift in the Republican Party? What's driving even the rift in the Democrat Party? Is that people believe the country's reached a tipping point, that the government has gone so far beyond serving them that, the government, in conjunction with whatever you call it, Wall Street, whatever interests, is in fact ripping off the country in conjunction with maybe the central banks. And we don't believe the Republican Party is the bulwark against, societal collapse and protection of the Constitution that it is supposed to be. So now the question is, what do we do? Well, the Democrats thinks as they do. It's the greedy rich. They're going for Bernie, but the Republicans, this is where I think it gets really dangerous. It's where we nearly had a President Buchanan 20 or 30 years ago. He ran a populist campaign, but you know what? I'll take Buchanan any day compared to what's going on now. You've got a atrophied national party that doesn't stand for anything, and therefore will fall for anything, and you've got a couple of decent conservatives. Even Rubio, except for a couple of flaws, is a lot better than the rest of them. You've got Cruz, who's a shining beacon, and you've got Trump. Trump is a populist, and he said, "I, with my force of personality, can fix this." And people are willing to believe or to suspend disbelief because they believe we've reached a tipping point.
You are right, and there is such a difference. You are right when you said suspend disbelief. It's not that they necessarily believe. They suspend their own disbelief in order to do it.
Yeah, they have their doubts. Maybe they're willing to overlook the doubts in order for the image on the screen to remain intact, and they believe that Trump can do it. And I gotta tell you, it's the most dangerous thing in the world. When you look at what happened, examples everywhere: Hugo Chavez, Juan Perón, the Kirchners, Mussolini, Franco. And of course Hitler. And people will throw rocks and eggs at me for saying that.
You breaker of Godwin's law.
No,
but
it's true.
But the point is, what were the Germans thinking in the 1920s and 1930s? oh goody, let's go and take over the world. No,
No.
that's not what they were thinking. Their greatness, which they had throughout a good chunk of the 19th century and the early 20th century, as the provinces had got together and the nation had become prosperous, had been smashed down. They were impoverished. They were embarrassed before the world. They were being forced to pay reparations. They were in terrible shape, and their currency imploded as well.
Right.
And so,
What does that sound like?
yeah, if
History does repeat itself.
if the wrong guy came along and says, "I know how to fix this," and he convinced enough of them,
Let's make Germany great again.
That's exactly that was exactly the National Socialism mantra.
Absolutely.
that's right. And I say that's why I got stuff thrown at me when I wrote this morning. Somebody said, "Yeah, let's have Trump and national capitalism," and I said, "Well, the problem is the problem is with Trump, it's more like national liberalism, or could I say national socialism?"
I had a discussion with a friend of mine who is a Baptist minister and has his master's in theology, and I've known him since high school. I've known him for 40-something years or whatever. And we were talking IM and on Facebook about candidates and stuff. And he asked me, about different things, question Trump, Cruz, whoever, And I said, well, here's my answer. I said, Ted Cruz is the person who, in my mind, will bring me closer to returning to a federal republic with more state sovereignty and local control. That's all I care about. I'm looking for that guy. Okay, I don't think any of those other guys are that guy. That's why I support him. There may be some other stuff that you may not love or hate or whatever about him, but given everything I've read and everything I know, he is more likely to get me closer to that goal than anybody else running, and that's all I care about.
And you know what? When you look at the others and their flaws, they have got serious flaws. And by the way, I'd love to see Jim Gilmore as president as a backup. The man's got far more depth when you get to know him, but he was just so far behind in the polls. You can laugh.
He would bring us closer to that goal than anybody else besides Cruz.
I think he's pretty good, yeah, because he understands economics, he understands world affairs, and he did a halfway decent job. Now, I didn't agree with him on everything, but the more you looked and listened, the more you realized that there was a serious and sensible guy there.
And he's a gentleman and a principled human being when you talk with him.
Absolutely. But you know what? Other than that, frankly, if you cannot devolve back to the constitutional republic, if you want somebody who will manage the federal giant efficiently and reduce costs, you may as well go for Jeb, because he can do that. You won't agree with him on anything else.
Well, and this is the thing that we need. I don't know. I mean, I failed to articulate it properly until maybe just now or last night. All these people, the Al Baldessaros, the Doug Lamberts, the people that we know who are supporting Trump, or whoever, who are, in theory, constitutional type people who think a federal republic is better, local control is better, the money and the power should be closer to the people. Who among these candidates is the person who is most likely to get you closer?
That's right.
Because that's what you want the president to do. We've had all the other kinds. We had George Bush, he made government bigger. We had Clinton, he made government bigger. We had Bush before him, he made the government bigger. We got Obama, he made it really bigger. If you really are a constitutional conservative or libertarian, the candidate you want, Rand Paul would be a great example of that. But he's not in the race. He didn't resonate with people. Who gets you closer to what you want at your core principle? It's not Trump.
No way.
It's Ted Cruz.
And not just because of things he's done. We have no way of knowing what he's going to do next. We don't have any set guidelines.
None.
Not even over 6 months.
Right.
Of what grounds him with relation to personal responsibility, property, and government. We don't. He's all over the place.
And by the way, there's a video out there. It goes back some while about Trump and his deals, and there's also a nice piece in Conservative HQ this morning about how it really went down in Atlantic City with the bankruptcy and the dilutions.
And I phrased it the way I did for a reason, because I used to be one of those, and I've said it before, one of those independent type people who didn't pay attention to politics. I voted for Democrats, I voted for Republicans, I voted for third party candidates. I didn't have a grounding. After 9/11, I went out and got one. I read, I did research, I found out what I believed and what made the most sense to me.
Yeah.
And ever since then, I've been, I think, pretty consistent. I think I have 8,000 posts out there that'll prove that my message is the same.
That we know what you believe.
That you know what I think and where it comes from.
Right.
Right? And so I said that specifically because we don't know with him. I mean, he may have been a raging liberal in the 90s, and I could forgive that if since then he had shown me consistently that he had found some principles that were now guiding him politically.
Correct.
We don't have that.
You know, I had the chance. I'm not sure if that's the right phrase.
Opportunity.
But an interaction with government, to which I had to talk about history.
You hit a tree.
My own history.
You were driving along, minding your own business, and a tree jumped out in front of your car with politics or government or something written on it.
And I had a chance to review because, I was asked, what is your background? What motivated you as you were growing up? What were the big things? And and I grew up in my church. I participated in all of the youth activities, Christian Service Brigade. I was in the youth choirs. I participated in the youth groups. I was president of the high school youth group. I was the same thing with the college-age guys and gals when I came back from college at the time. Got involved with the new marrieds when we did that. I taught Sunday school to kids. I taught Sunday school to high schoolers. Debbie and I were the youth leaders at our churches. I was on the Christian Ed board. I was chair of the Christian Ed board. Sang in the choirs, and then finally became a deacon, which is in a Protestant church is one step below being a pastor. But I preached as well, so to me that was my life until we just couldn't go to church anymore for various and sundry reasons, having to do with health reasons. But I've noticed that politics, even though we always hear that politics and religion should never mix, they're essentially the same thing in different ways. On one side you have the Bible for me as an evangelical Christian. For us as conservatives, we have the Constitution. Again, from what I said earlier, these are rock bottom absolute values. They are not to be trifled with. But in religion you see the mainline Protestant denominations like the Presbyterians, Episcopalians, all that, going to a social gospel. They're becoming secularized, where their foundational document, with the foundational documents are either of no consequence whatsoever. When the Presbyterians say, "Well, Jesus Christ isn't the only way to heaven," they've gone off the rails as far as that's concerned. We as conservatives understand the Constitution is the equivalent to what the Bible is in the religious world. And that's how we judge things, and that's where we want to go. But as we see, even people who call themselves conservatives, once they unhinge themselves from their foundational materials, you can believe in anything. And I think that's what's driving a lot of us. The radicals of the 60s, the real progressives, who use culture to change the culture. That was with the Frankfurt School. When they came from Germany, settled in California, found them to be too decadent and moved to Chicago. They set about to change the culture because they saw that the economic warfare, which couldn't work at that time, wasn't working. So you take the culture, like you brought up with Dewey way back in the early 1900s, you change the culture. You change Hollywood. You do this. Hollywood used to be very patriotic. World War II and previous. Now, not so much. It's changed. So they've taken those high ramparts. So my point is, once again, once you get away from those foundational materials that way back when we all, as Americans, took for granted, whether you were a churchgoer or not, whether you looked at that, but you go back to the 1790s through, say, the 1860s, that was a given. It wasn't even discussed.
Right.
Progressivism, that rot of a foreign philosophy, changed everything. As Bismarck, you talked about Germany being a tremendous country back in the 1800s. Well, it was von Bismarck rolling stuff up through the 1860s and 1880s, rolling up all of the German provinces. That's when they finally got their country.
And by the way, national health.
And, well, he was trying to beat the socialists to their own game, and he figured out, well, if I promise the populists these things, but get to use their money to give them back these things, I'll keep the real socialists at bay. So it's always been the lesser of two evils. But when that philosophy really became, Marxist and Leninism and rolled on through, to go back to your point, you've been wondering this whole time, how could we get like this? It's because we've left absolute values.
Absolutely.
And it's human nature.
And it's human nature. It's
entropy.
Yeah. And my little soliloquy here was brought up because you're talking to your pastor friend. And I've been thinking about this for a long time because I have kind of switched from one to the other because this I can do all the time, in addition to maintaining my roots, obviously, but in a less institutionalized way. I haven't left those foundational things.
All right, quick break. We're going to come back. Great discussion. No, you can keep going. No, that's fine. You fit it in nice. We'll be right back. Stay tuned.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested, riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW, New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at GerardAtLarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
This is the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is the repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
We could do an entire show just on the breaks.
Yeah, water snorting out the nose.
I mean,
might even be more interesting.
If you think the conversation's good when we're on here, don't worry, we're not saying anything bad. We're just continuing the conversation, which is
right. So let's cover a couple of things. So that one triggered a good exchange. So yeah. So yesterday,
welcome to the jungle.
It was significant that Marco Rubio played truant again. There was a conservative review convention in South Carolina. It was a big effing deal, as Mr. Biden would say. It had Michelle Malkin, Mark Levin, a couple other conservative talk hosts. It had all the top.
It had panache.
It had
conservative panache.
It had all the
beautiful people.
All the top conservative candidates lined up to be there, and their surrogates to introduce them. And I'll come back to that because it's important. The people were lined up around the block to get into the convention center at the whatever university, and
what a great name for a school.
We
should call them all that. All the liberal schools.
Wasn't it Myrtle
whatever
Beach?
University.
I think it was at Myrtle Beach, right?
Okay, go ahead.
South Carolina. Yeah, never mind. I'll
Yeah,
find.
okay.
The place is not important.
No, it's
what
not.
is important is that Marco Rubio had a better offer and didn't show. But he waited till 5 minutes before he was due to get on the stage to tell him. They even tried to move the schedule around to fit him in, but he didn't show. Why? Because he was with Megyn Kelly and with Frank Luntz. By the way, that's also...
Is that right?
Yeah. And he was with Megyn Kelly, with his newfound bud, Nikki Haley. So then we get on to what I think it was Jane said, and when Skip nearly had an accident with his computer and a bottle of water, which is that
I can actually get you a waterproof laptop. They're really expensive.
yeah. My friend Scott runs Tough Books because he doesn't trust himself not to spill coffee on him. And he doesn't want the Fed snooping either. But be that as it may, so Jane said, yeah. So he's there with Megyn Kelly. He's on Megyn Kelly with Nikki Haley. She's endorsing him, and she's probably going to be his running mate. And Skip went.
Yeah. No, they actually asked the question.
Yeah.
And I had been thinking that too. Why would she jump? Like 3 weeks before, she had been asked about Rubio, and she had said, "I am not for amnesty. just bang. No, I'm not for amnesty, but Rubio is, so we don't agree on that. So now, a few weeks later, here she jumps
So
on.
she just gave Rubio amnesty on amnesty. I get it.
What the heck
I see
is
how
she
that works.
doing? I'm like, holy moly!
It's a political move,
It's
right?
obvious. She's an ambitious young lady. She was already allowed to give the Republican response
With
to
a spotty record, by the way.
To the state.
Right.
Well, I'll come back to that. The State of the Union show, where she panned the angry voices, meaning clearly not just Trump, but also Cruz.
Absolutely.
Okay. So it's clear where she wasn't, even if we weren't sure where she was. But from a philosophical point of view, she's not much more steadfast than Ben Carson. I.e., she's not really quite sure where she is. So she got herself in there as a conservative, and she may be doing okay things for the economy, I'm not sure. But when it came to matters of principle, matters that black people had died for, such as the South and the Confederate flag, she caved like a cheap suit when it came to standing up for a historical symbol of the South. And let me say that again, that black people had died for. It's only the agitators, liberal agitators, that want rid of the Confederate flag.
Right, she
and
caved really quickly.
She caved really quickly, and they called her statesmanlike. And so you know what this lady's angling for, and it's the VP-ship. And you know that she's not going to get that unless a rhino squish approved by the party is the nominee. Well, it ain't going to be Jeb, and they're running out of options. And the party is in panic because Rubio's probably their great white hope, and he's got more flaws than they thought.
That's right, absolutely. I agree.
If it was only amnesty, they wouldn't mind. It's the fact that he's actually fairly easily exposed as an empty suit with a very thin record.
Yeah, and you know what? The issues thing, for me, I don't even care about the issue beyond amnesty, because he was so on top of no amnesty for his entire campaign. It was his number one campaign promise. No amnesty. He's in 4 weeks. He wins the election. They give him the Senate seat, and he goes to Washington, and within 4 to 5 weeks, pens an amnesty. What is for all purposes an amnesty bill, although it's not amnesty in the wording. All of the policies in it grant amnesty, with Chuck Schumer, and he has the audacity to think that he has any integrity left. I mean, who does that? This was huge.
I supported him over Charlie Crist. I sent money. I thought I was hearing Reagan-esque speeches.
Yeah.
Well, we now know that he does them in memorized 25-second sound bites.
That was great. Loved that at the last debate. That was quite funny.
And didn't help Christie much, though.
It didn't, but it was really funny.
But that was never the mission. The mission of Christie wasn't to elect Christie. Sorry, Jeff. The mission of Christie was to take out.
And boy, did he ever.
To take out one or more of Bush's challengers, and he stuck the shiv into Rubio really well.
Were you watching that like I was?
It didn't work.
Oh, it worked. Are you kidding?
It did, but it didn't. It didn't take him out. He's still in the top 3.
Well, he might be in the top 3,
Right,
but he was sailing at that point.
At that particular point in time, he got hosed bad. Yes, I agree.
It dented him badly. It allowed Bush to be 4th instead of 5th in the New Hampshire primary. So it achieved some purpose.
That was so bizarre watching it when you were watching that whole thing, and he just kept saying it, and Christie kept smacking him, and then he'd come up in the next segment and he'd say it again. My family and I were laughing at the TV going, not again. He said it again. I mean, it was like 4 or 5 times.
You have to put it, though, for Christie. The way that he was slouching at the podium, he knew it was going to happen.
He was just leaning.
There he goes again.
That was Prosecutor Christie.
Man, that was good stuff.
Leaning
I'm
into
sorry.
the jury.
You're right.
So to our law enforcement aforementioned friend that supported Christie, yes, he's a great damn prosecutor, but he's got too many other flaws to be president. Anyway, that matters not. It was a wonderful job, and as I say, when he backed out, I think I mentioned this last week, James Taranto's baiku for Christie was just precious. Mr. Roboto, domo arigato. I am a kamikaze.
What?
In other words, I came here to take you out and die.
Oh, I get you. Okay. Well, do you think that caused him to die? I think he was dying a slow death anyway.
No, but he achieved his mission.
He did.
His mission was to bomb Rubio, and
he knew walking out he was going to do it. You know, he started right off the top with it.
Well,
it was great.
No, it was worse than that, actually. I don't want to relitigate that debate. It was worse than that. As you watched the debate open, the moderators were trying to set them up to fight against each other. And you watched Cruz and Trump, at least initially, fail to take the bait.
Right.
They were playing prevent defense. They knew what they were being set up for, and they wouldn't take it.
Right.
And they handed the softball to Rubio, and he picked it up and he charged at Christie over it, and he opened himself up so wide, Christie just turned on the buzzsaw and took him out.
Totally.
You know, that's the other thing that just drove me absolutely nuts. Here's the RNC during their autopsy saying one of the biggest things we have to do is to take control of our own debates. And who do they bring in as a moderator? John Dickinson, who has advising Obama said, kill the Republicans. You know, what kind of witless nitwits at the RNC, and I blame Reince Priebus for this, is going to allow a Dickinson to be sitting there in the main chair throwing these bombs. This is like when Granite Grok caught John King and Josh McKelvin conspiring to let's get a food fight going. Okay? And
well, you know who's the head of it, right?
They call him the stupid party.
You know who the head of it is?
The head of which?
The head national committee person that is in charge.
Yes!
In charge of the debates.
My favorite Steve Dupree.
Yeah. Man, you went into overload there. The microphone probably exploded.
They're going to need a little post-editing amplification, de-amplification.
Yes, the person who gives money to Planned Parenthood Action Fund to take out all those that do not believe in abortion on demand at any time. Kelly Ayotte. So, I just still don't understand this mentality. And also that he supports gay marriage. Again, are you going to support the platform or not? How good of a representation are you going to do? Oh, it's only the First in the Nation primary that's of use to you. How you doing so well with voter fraud there, Mr. Dupree? Just because the Republican Party won't go after it because of Jeb Bradley's son. Oh, shh. We can't talk about it. Shh, there might be another one. Shh. It's a ready-made policy, but we can't destroy and eat our own at the same time.
Yes, because for some reason...
Wait a minute, they do that all the time.
I know.
Yeah, no,
they won't... They'll invest more energy going after us for bringing it up than they will in just confronting it and fixing it.
Yeah.
We could have fixed this
No
half
kidding.
a dozen elections ago.
That's right.
Right.
All right? We could have ended this.
Absolutely.
We could have ended Democrat vote fraud in New Hampshire.
Bizarre.
Right.
But no, we can't do that. We can't do that. Why? Why can't we do it? Because I can't find it. Where is it? Damn it. Oh no.
Is that a demon sheep?
It's sheep. No, those aren't demon sheep.
No, those are regular sheep.
Yes.
To be sent to the slaughter.
Right. So, Skip, you mentioned our favorite senator, Kelly Ayotte. So, let me just bring this up.
I still can't believe we actually patted her
She is
on
our
the back.
favorite New Hampshire senator. She actually is.
Yeah.
Oh,
The
God.
choices are very limited, but given between the two...
But I still can't believe that when she first took her office, that we were at an event, and she came over to us, and I think kind of tentatively, given that we had supported Ovid, and we actually said, so far so good, Kelly. We're kind of
I
surprised.
remember my wife was there. It was a Breitbart thing.
Yeah,
Andrew Breitbart
and I
was
go
there
back
with,
and I go,
James O'Keefe.
oh, facepalm. I ever said what I did.
Well, it's all right.
Well,
she started off, I guess.
She
okay.
started the first year was good.
Yeah. If you watch her trajectory according to the Club for Growth or any of these others that keep score over years, her score this past year is terrible. It's in the 40s, I think, but her lifetime score is like 70-something. Why?
Because it did well in the beginning.
Because the first year she was in the high 90s.
She was
and
in
the
the
second
90s,
year she was 80-something.
Maybe that's why she did it.
And she's come down steadily ever since.
Well,
Her,
it's the senior slide, really. You
You
get
think?
there, you get in the swamp, you get in with the wrong kind of people, you begin to think and talk the way they do. The entire culture encompasses you, and you just become part of the
So
political
who's
class.
going to primary her? Anybody here?
I don't think so, but I can guarantee you she's probably going to lose.
Well, I am hearing that there is a group that will run an independent just to make sure.
Hemingway's
she
going to
gets-
run independent, they said.
Yeah. Well,
Hemingway.
don't talk to me about Judas.
That'll sure, yeah.
You know what? I don't understand.
You want to make me vote for Kelly?
Yeah, well, we can't do that either. But I mean, I don't understand how that happens either.
So let's.
I know what I'm going to get with Kelly.
Let's just cover Judas
that way.
Hemingway for a
I
second.
don't want what I would get. With
No,
Ted.
I don't want that, but
Here we go.
Yeah, I got thanked at the Cruz after party by a guy who came up to me and said basically thanks for exposing Hemingway, and you don't know the half of how bad he is because this guy worked with him on the Gingrich campaign and has further opinions of just.
Well, did you notice Throwback Thursday? I did an episode where he was supposed to be on the show, and he didn't show up.
No, really?
Yeah.
June 1st, 2013.
Wow.
And I'm like, wow. It's the same back then.
Yeah,
That's bad.
Got the record. So just two things very quickly. First of all, I shudder to think what suspending his disbelief got him. But let me simply ask, Mr. Hemingway, did you get the exposure and the talking spots that you expected after the first one?
I think he got a couple, and
He
that's
might
been
have.
it.
But it's not going to be enough because it's out now.
He didn't get what he thought he was going to get. He abandoned principle.
That's right.
To go with the Trump campaign, to chase the shiny object.
And if he's going to be successful in New Hampshire on that trajectory, he needs to go full rhino because the party's
Right, exactly.
not going to back him if they've got a better rhino they can trust.
No, well, the party.
That's an oxymoron.
Yeah.
A rhino you can trust.
A rhino they can trust to be a rhino.
Yeah.
Real.
Yeah, will he have the right herd mentality?
Right, he's stuck in the middle of that. He's lost the grassroots.
Totally.
And
That'll
he
never
doesn't
come back.
have the other side of that. The opposite.
Yeah. So is he going to get crushed between the elephants and the rhinos, or is he going to mount a rhino and ride with them? Pardon the images.
That's a visualization.
Well, I hear
hard
that.
time with.
Yeah. So, right now, who
Is
do
that a
we
Rough
have?
Rider?
There is nobody else that said. Wasn't somebody telling me that Jim Lawrence or James Lawrence was thinking about it?
We have tried to approach Jim Lawrence, and he's not biting. I think he'd make a great candidate.
I do too.
Well,
I could jump on that train.
There's a lot of good candidates that could. I think the biggest problem is the money.
Yes, it is.
I would make a splendid candidate.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Well, the problem is also that the party itself will do everything it can to squish anybody that really is conservative that runs in a Republican primary. So they all know that. It's not even just the money. You're just going to get squished.
So before we run out of time for the segment.
You're Caesar and everybody else is Brutus in the party, and you're going to step up and say, and
yeah, that's it.
Stabbing you in the back.
You bet.
Yeah, how many bruti are there out there?
There's a lot.
Yeah. So circling back around, interesting whispers in the wind. So Kelly stands up right away after the death of Scalia, God rest the man, and says, lays out this piece. Absolutely no way. This shall not pass. Not on my watch. And then you see the articles coming out in the semi-conservative press about how, McConnell's got this worked out so he can maintain a firewall so that the ones that are in squishy states that might have to defend their actions can say they voted for it before they voted against it, and they name Collins and a couple other squishes, and Ayotte, of course.
Right off the bat, we have this new PAC called Judicial Crisis Watch that is now running ads here in New Hampshire proclaiming how wonderful Kelly Ayotte is. And I had a back and forth with one of these folks because they sent it to Granite Rock. I got it, and I started to have a back and forth telling him, let me tell you how it really is here. And, their only response is, well, we're trying to encourage her to do the right thing. And I said, you're too late. You should have talked to some of us beforehand that are in the grassroots.
She doesn't believe any of that. You do know that, right?
Believe any of which?
That whole campaign I really believe. I mean, she has refused 3 times to even sit with me for New Hampshire Right to Life. My board has asked me on 3 separate occasions to try to engage, and I can't. She won't meet with me. She won't. She has her people call, and when they're supposed to call back, I hear nothing. So after trying to dog it 3 times, we've just let it go. She is ensconced in a bubble that I truly believe she thinks is unbreakable. She's got everybody in the Rhino Factor holding guard around her, and I really believe that entire campaign believes that they are untouchable, and that it's just a matter of wearing it out, so that just get there and she'll just be inserted right back in.
You know,
they believe that.
We ran through that at the first time Frank Ginter tried to go for re-election.
He thought that too. You're right.
With Walt Havenstein running for election.
We saw that with Charlie
Brown.
We saw it with Charlie Bass twice in the time I've been with you guys on this program, where he lost once because he was acting like a Democrat and was replaced by a real one, Paul Hodes.
Yep.
And so he got religion and he came back and said, I'm a conservative. He rode the Tea Party wave in 2010.
No, he rode Jennifer Horn's tailcoats.
Well,
to get back in. She was the one who waltzed him around here and said, believe me,
well,
believe me.
that was after she lost because she challenged him, and now we got to wonder who would have been worse. Anyway, we're going to take a little break.
A break.
We're going to take a little break. And then
Give me a break.
Final segment. Stay tuned. Rock Talk.
This is a coalition of New Hampshire taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is the repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested, riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW, New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at gerardatlarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
Need more Grok Talk? Well, you can catch new shows Saturday mornings from 9 to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Miss a show? Not a problem. Past shows are rebroadcast here daily from 9 to 11 a.m. Monday through Friday. Join us for 2 hours of unapologetic conservatism. And we're not just armed with opinions.
All right.
So how do you lead us in, Chief?
Repeat what you said.
If Kelly Ayotte lives up to the letter she sent round on what the Senate should do on replacement justices in this election year, to stand firm and not allow anyone to pass unless they are actually a constitutional scholar, which is not what Obama's going to nominate, that does she get enough credit that she might bring back the missing base without whom she will not win re-election?
No. Next question.
Well, you know what? I wouldn't jump on that. I'm no Ayotte supporter, but I think that there is a portion of the base that understands this is the single most important appointee that will happen in their lifetime. And if she does, and I'm not saying it's because she'll do it because she believes that it's the right thing to do. I say it's because it's election time. But if she did take the platform and fight for it in the view of the public and the press and the media, I think that there is a portion of the base that could turn to support her.
I got 2 words for you.
Yeah.
You may not get the diehards, but go ahead.
Yeah.
WOTUS and CPP, Waters of the United States, and the Clean Power
Yeah, but she's right, though, because I know people who are otherwise Al Baldessaro type conservative folks who have been defending Kelly because normally they wouldn't, but and I have issues with them too. Mm-hmm. But she could get those people to vote for her.
Maybe, but with those 2 things, the EPA trying to basically say this is what Americans will use for energy, and take out anything that doesn't belong there. And with WOTUS, they will basically become the National Zoning Board.
Absolutely.
We will have lost all control over everything.
I agree. Listen, I agree with you.
And she's in favor of those.
I understand, but you know what? You're getting in the weeds here for the folks that don't really like. How many people do we know from the Trump thing that they don't pay attention in the weeds? If she was smart enough, and I'm not sure she will be doing it, I'm just saying to take her office and use it as a platform to say no, no, no. I think that there is a percentage that could say, you throw them a bone. This is all about throwing bones in the campaign, you know. You throw somebody something so they can grab it and say, yeah, but, and you can grab it in hard enough that you can maybe sway a few votes. That's all it's about.
I think she's going to be more of the Scott Brown kind, that when she realizes that she's in big trouble, she's going to try to out-abortion Hassan. But it'll be the Supreme Court nomination.
That'll be a big
instead.
problem for her. But yeah, okay, she could, I guess.
Yeah, if she runs to the left of Hassan, like Bass tried to run to the left of Hodes, and
we'll just add that trophy to our little case.
Loudly.
And Brown ran to the left of Warren and Shaheen, and lost. You got to show principles.
Yes.
If she stands on principle on the Supreme Court, I think she wins back just enough votes that she might squeak it. It's going to be a tough call.
Yeah.
Because at that point, you're going to say, well, do you trust me with the next Supreme Court justice, or do you trust Hassan? You know.
Yeah, that's a hard question.
That's a tough question.
So they're probably talking about this. They're discussing this. Trust me.
They're discussing this. Well,
they are.
All
They're
right,
not
I will
stupid.
grant you, she might.
Let me tell you.
She might squeak by if she sticks through it.
A little
but
bit,
if she caves, she's not even toast anymore.
Oh my God! If she
burnt,
caves on this,
she's
forget
crispy
it.
critter.
You pick one. You can't pick anything at that point. There's nothing
I am
left
going
that
to
you
say,
could support her with.
as I write back to her campaign people every time, you have lost this election. You will not get it without the enthusiasm of the base. Hassan will walk all over you. If you stand firm on this item, you just might win back enough people to squeak it.
Interesting.
You know what I did yesterday, Joe, that puts a grin on my face? I got the donation ask from the Friends of Kelly Ayotte. I simply took the self-addressed return envelope, sealed it, put it in my mailbox with nothing in it. They're going to spend a dime to get an empty envelope. I'm so proud of myself.
Do you really want to try and tap your base? You got to excite them first.
What base?
They don't believe in the base.
No, they don't.
They don't. They don't believe in the base. They think
they believe they can win without the base.
That's right.
Okay.
And they still haven't learned.
And they haven't learned. They keep losing without
That's right.
No,
the base.
but that's only been a very recent phenomenon over the last two,
That's
maybe
true.
3 cycles.
That's right. 2 cycles that I've seen.
But I'm sorry, but I am going
That's
to point
way long enough for any progressive mind to process.
No, because once you're ensconced in power, you're willing to throw off a couple of what you believe to be outliers. But it's got to be adding up with Frank Ginta, Walt Havenstein, Scott Brown. There was somebody else before that we did it to as well. And I just can't remember who it was. But, they're going to need the virtual 2x4 against their head, slap on the wrist, break that wrist until they finally learn. But even at that, they might say, we don't care because we're still in charge.
That's okay. They can do it for one more cycle. I'll have to tell you that New Hampshire Right to Life, and I'm very proud of this, we're going to be putting together a really, really good voter guide. And I have people that I'm meeting with next week to put together this. We are going to have teeth, gentlemen. We're going to have some really good teeth. And you know what? We're going to bite really hard, especially those Republicans that were grotesque in their support of things like giving medical care to a baby born from an abortion, offering medical care to a baby born out of a botched abortion. These Republicans can't even vote for that. They will vote to keep subsidizing Planned Parenthood. Warning, warning, warning. The games have begun, and New Hampshire Right to Life is going to have a say at this election. Every penny we have in the bank is going to go to make sure it happens.
And did you notice that the Senate Republicans just locked down even tighter campaign finances? I read that in the UL, and I went, how the heck did this get past me? Because that's something I generally look for. They're tightening up the reporting requirements of people.
Oh, is this related to the crap they passed last year?
Yeah, now they've done it down even harder. It's like, this is what I mean by constitutionalists. We read the simple words in the Constitution, article, in this case, Amendment number 1, the free expression, and they don't believe it.
So what is this thing that you're talking about? I didn't
They're
hear.
tightening up the requirements by which, if you speak politically, you have to report to the government more often, unless you are a candidate.
Right. It's incumbent protection.
Yeah.
We fought this bill for years, and it was proposed by Republicans.
It keeps coming back because,
And they passed it last year.
It passed the Senate?
Last year.
Yeah, Stiles is the prime sponsor.
Last year, the year before, the actual bill passed, and now they're just starting to crank their thumb screws down on it.
So the Democrats, at least what they stand for, even if they lie about the details in order to get their bills passed. The Republicans don't stand for anything, and as a result, they have to resort to deception just to protect their own asses.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just quickly cover. Did we cover Rubio's truancy in South Carolina?
We did.
Yes,
Quickly, yes.
Or did we only cover it in our break?
We covered it.
We did. We talked a little bit about it.
Okay, then I'll skip that. Okay, so Apple, the Feds, and the Fourth.
Or did we?
The battle of St. Tim.
Yeah, disgusting. I don't know. I mean, this one here kills me that the Apple organization has offered to give the contents, from what I understand, to the government of what's on the one phone. No, I understood.
They refused.
I understood from what I heard yesterday on
I heard
Limbaugh.
they refused to write any software
That's
to
right.
open a back door
Open
that
it
would
for
allow
them.
them to
That's
do
the
whatever
point.
they
Yes,
wanted.
so what they've done is they've gone and told the government, we'll give you what's in the phone, we'll open it,
Because there's a warrant for
and
that,
we'll
right?
give it to you.
Isn't there a warrant for
And
the
they
contents?
said no.
Yes,
There is
there is.
now, as of last night.
We want how to open the phones. They're holding out to try to get the information or something that Apple needs to give them to be able to have access to all iPhones. That's what I've been understanding.
That's the grounds that Apple are objecting to, because they say this is hardware encryption. The information's burned in there in such a way that you can't get it out without destroying it. And they say, well, we want you to recast the software so we can try to brute force the password without the data being destroyed. Because right now, 10 failed
10
attempts,
times.
and the data catches fire. Not the phone, thankfully. But it gets more interesting. It turns out that while the phone was initially in FBI possession,
Yes.
What? I didn't hear this part.
This piece
This
is really
is funny.
good. This is really good. One of the FBI techs managed to change the password on the phone, and then forgot it. Talk about Facebook.
No,
Are you kidding me?
I thought that was the iCloud backup of it.
Oh, maybe.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
what?
the phone automatically was getting backed up into
Right.
the cloud.
Right.
And one of the government officials changed the password to that backup, and now they can't get that back either.
Are you kidding me?
I've
Yes.
done that. Changed my password, and then I'm like,
Oh, I know, but FBI?
oh.
Yeah. In fact, where did I put it?
How sad.
That's all right.
You know what? They're going to have to capitulate. Apple.
You know the stuff about the worker replacement down at the Magic Kingdom.
No.
Yes.
No.
Yeah, where they're forced to train their replacements to people coming in on H-1Bs.
Okay. Yep.
Well, I have always said, and I've been involved with them from 2 or 3 different companies supplying IT goods and services, that these people run a Mickey Mouse operation down there, and
sure.
I mean it in every
In
sense,
every way.
every sense of the word. Well, a few months ago, these folks had put some data in the cloud. Okay, using an appliance. I'm not going to name the company, and the appliance died. So we shipped them a new one. And we shipped them a guy to help set it up, and there were people on the phone all freaking night, as it turned out. The problem was, in their bid to be secure, they'd put a custom encryption certificate on this thing. So the data in the cloud was encrypted with a custom certificate that they had generated.
Yeah.
But wait, there'd been a change of personnel. And the person who had left had not saved a copy of the certificate or the passphrase. They could not retrieve nor reinstall the custom encryption certificate on the new appliance, so it could not read the data that the old appliance that failed had put in the cloud.
Oh, my goodness.
And
Did they fix it?
we spent an entire night breathing enough life into the old appliance to export its certificate
Oh,
to
my
the new
gosh.
one.
I just can't imagine. I'd, die if I had to think about something like that.
The new IT guy thought he was going to die. So you can imagine how he felt when we finally fixed it.
Let me go back to the original thing here. My take on this is that here we see government demanding something special for and of itself that it will not let, or says that ordinary citizens should not have, which is the encryption right from the get-go. And I look at this, to put it in another way, this is government saying, we can say things, but you can't.
Right.
We can have body armor and all this heavy weaponry, but you can't.
We can
do this, but you can't have that. And we're seeing. I think this is very dangerous. Not
and
just for the phone.
We can have secrets, but your personal papers and effects are not safe.
Yes.
Fourth Amendment.
And that's really what it comes down to, where government once again is putting itself above everybody else.
Of course.
That we're supposed to be above the government. But here's we've been seeing this over the last few decades, again with the progressives, that government comes first. We are becoming subjects, no longer
Subservient.
citizens, government. Now we're going to become subjects, just like they are in Europe. Progressives want us to be like Europe, but how many of us want to be subjects like they are in Europe?
We don't. But I have something upbeat to say about this.
Yeah.
All this hard time that we're talking about that they can't get into the phone, right?
Yeah.
Man, I love that, because I had always assumed that nothing was safe. But you know what? It can't be true, because look at this. You have these these bureaucracies coming down trying to say, give it to us. So you know what? Maybe our stuff is a little bit more safe than we think.
Well, I understand the national security, the ability to go after terrorists and all of that.
Do it the right
way.
way.
But it becomes that balance beam again.
Right.
At what price security over what price of freedom?
Do it the right way.
What did Ted Cruz say? He said, you have evidence. You go get a warrant.
Do it the
right way. Take the warrant. The warrant says what you can go get, and then you go get that.
That's right.
And
that's the answer.
And that's the way the system's supposed to work. It's not supposed to be, we really want all of this,
that's
and
right.
we don't want to bother the judge, and just because you don't have evidence.
Well, this is the same thing that's going on now with James O'Keefe and the New Hampshire Attorney General. I put up the letter. There was a demand letter.
3 minutes, you think you can fit it all in there?
Demand letter saying, James O'Keefe, you have to preserve all the video that you took over the latest exposure and made a mockery of the state of New Hampshire and all of its elected officials and such.
Again.
Because we're doing an investigation.
Again. Mm-hmm.
And the question is who are they investigating? They don't say. And I've told James O'Keefe, I'll be blunt. They said, well, we can do this without a warrant if you can do it voluntarily, or they'll do a warrant. I'm telling him, do the freaking warrant. Force them to do to the letter of the law, cross all the T's and I's, and demand it fully put out there. Because
I hope he does.
The most ludicrous thing you could do is to have them, given what happened last time when they went after O'Keefe, is to give them the video for which they're then going to use to go after them.
Everybody said when the AG announced they were going to start an investigation, everybody's like, oh, what, of O'Keefe?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's true.
Look what happened in Texas with the Planned Parenthood stuff. They eventually indicted the filmmakers.
That's right.
Correct.
David is on trial for it, that General Dadelson.
Yeah.
They go after him instead
and
of
that's
what's
how
really the issue.
And it would be, I wouldn't be surprised if they did, because just like the lawfare we started out the show with, that is how you intimidate everybody else to keep them from even trying to find out what they're really doing or what they're really saying or how they're cheating or how they're rigging the system.
It's a progressive technique.
It's campaign finance
and it's
reform.
Everywhere.
It's everything. It's shut the people up,
That's right.
Scare the crap out of everybody else, and use somebody as an example.
Don't you remember when one of the reps in Belknap actually brought Colette and I to court when I was a sitting rep?
Yeah.
It was the same thing. Sit down and shut up.
Yeah.
And you know what? He got his ass kicked, and then he lost his election, and I loved it.
Yeah, and that's how it should be. But I mean, you could say this is this is a publicity stunt, but I think Apple's making the right stand here. They should not be forced to create a backdoor.
I agree.
Nobody should be forced to create breakable security, breakable encryption. The government demands that its encryption is not breakable. When the government sponsored the competition of ideas that resulted in AES, the currently used encryption standard. It was meant to be unbreakable, and there were voices suggesting
Apple should just do a commercial that includes the
Wouldn't that
part
be
where the
great?
federal government got hacked and all those people's.
Yes.
That's perfect. You
You're
want
right.
them, a nice Apple commercial.
you want these guys in charge of keeping safe backdoors to your phones. I don't think so.
Yeah.
I had actually thought that Google had already effectively
Introducing
caved
the
to
I
Apple.
did too.
to the
I don't
feds,
think so.
But it turns out that the newer generations of droids are also
Right.
fitted with hardware encryption that can't be accidentally
So isn't that
broken.
great? I love this.
This is terrific. And like I said,
all right.
go back 20 years or so. Phil Zimmerman invented PGP, and
done.
he committed the crime
You have to
of
stop.
publishing
You
it.
have to stop. We have to go. Thank you very much, world. We'll be back next week.
Need more Grok Talk? Well, you can catch new shows Saturday mornings from 9 to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Miss a show? Not a problem. Past shows are rebroadcast here daily from 9 to 11 a.m. Monday through Friday. Join us for 2 hours of unapologetic conservatism. And we're not just armed with opinions.
Rock Talk.
The opinions expressed on this program are those of the speakers and not necessarily those of CNHT, GraniteRock.com, this station, or anyone else for that matter. Some of the content on this program is shared under the fair use provision of U.S. copyright law, found free in the public domain, or covered under Attribution 3.0. Some of the music on this program is provided by Kevin MacLeod at Incompetech.com. From the CNHT studios in Concord, New Hampshire, just a few blocks from the New Hampshire State House, this is
Rock Talk.